August the 30th, 1937, Joe Louis makes the first defence of his World Heavyweight title against the Brit Tommy Farr, who travelled from Wales to Yankee Stadium and acquitted himself extremely well as Louis took a 15-round decision. Tommy Farr, for my money, is one of the best British heavyweights in the time period where the American media labelled British heavyweights horizontal heavyweights.
He was the sort of boxer, Tommy, who could give anybody a fight, go the distance with anybody. Little bit of a spoiler. He could make people look bad if he wanted to. There's a lot of good left-hand work going on in this, which is something you don't often see in these old heavyweight championship fights.
He's not running. He's right there fighting with him. He's very clever. He's in range to get hit, but he's very elusive and he's moving. People nowadays probably say he's a spoiler, he was running. It's just nowadays they would run. Now, this is what you call boxing, what Mr. Farr is doing. He's coming forward, he's jabbing, he's not going backwards. He's making the fight, because back in these days, if a gentleman were to run and think the place out, he perhaps wouldn't get paid.
It was a 95-year wait between 1897, when Bob Fitzsimmons defeated James J. Corbett for the heavyweight title, that we had to wait for the next Brit to become champion. And that was Lennox Lewis when he was awarded the WBC title in 1992. He eventually went on to become undisputed champion. In between that time, there were some characters, not the best heavyweights, perhaps not even world class. There was Brian London, son of Jack London, former British heavyweight champion, and the unforgettable ending of his fight with Dick Richardson.
There was pandemonium, a free-for-all, a scene without parallel in the history of boxing. London had lost his temper completely. It was no longer a private fight. Everybody joined in. London's brother and his father, ex-heavyweight champion Jack London, weighed in, so the family was well represented. Eventually, the police restored order by sheer weight of numbers.
In Henry Cooper's last fight, 1971, against Joe Bugner, Bugner took a points decision as Harry Gibbs, the sole judge and referee of the contest, awarded the decision to Joe. This caused outrage as the pro-Henry Cooper crowd booed and voiced its disapproval at the decision. Joe became a pariah in the United Kingdom as a result. Henry Cooper never spoke to Harry Gibbs. He didn't speak to Joe Bugner for years. They eventually did speak. The fight, significant because the cartel that was running boxing at that time, Mickey Duff, Jarvis Astaire, Mike Barrett, didn't have Henry Cooper as one of their assets. And Henry was the most visible boxer in the country. But when Joe Bugner took the decision, the cartel now had carte blanche in running UK boxing.
And there it is, it's over. And Cooper gives him a pat and says, well done, and he's given it to Bugner. He's given it to Joe Bugner. And I find that amazing. He's given it to Joe Bugner. And Cooper has lost 3 titles. And the Commonwealth. But nobody in the arena believes it to be true. So Bugner raises his arms and gets nothing but boos at 21.
Joe Bugner was the best heavyweight Britain had in the 70s, whether the press liked it or not. In 1982, Frank Bruno made his professional debut with the cartel. By 1986, Joe Bugner was still fighting, but after what must have seemed an eternity battling the press, who would never embrace him the way he believed they should have, he migrated to Australia. In 1987, however, the changing of the guard took place when Joe accepted a fight with Frank Bruno at White Hart Lane. Bruno, 25 years of age, and in contrast to Bugner, was immensely popular in the United Kingdom. Endorsement friendly, you could argue he was the most popular athlete in this country. 25 years of age, Bugner was 37. The fight was promoted by Barry Hearn, co-promoted with Terry Lawless, aka cartel member, Frank Bruno's trainer and manager. Both Frank Bruno and Joe Bugner had the option to take $250,000 flat, that's pounds, or a lesser guarantee and 35% of the profits. Bugner took the $250 flat. Bruno opted to take the lower split and 35% of the profits. Bruno walked away with $450,000. They sold 40,000 tickets. Barry Hearn, he obviously wanted a big gate. So what did he do? He announced that the fight will not be shown live on television. Bruno and Bugner were throwing punches at 9:35 p.m. The ITV broadcast started at 10:30. So if it had went the distance, and it could have went the distance, it didn't, it ended in the 8th, but if it went the distance, that means Barry's pledge that the fight would not be shown live would be true, but only by 7 minutes. Now, journalists like Ron Wills, they were asking, is that ethically acceptable? As far as Barry was concerned, as long as they weren't punching, then it's not live.
It's a long time since Bugner's been asked to cope with a jab like that coming at him. If you look at his opponents over there, see, look.
Yeah, and he's down. He clubbed him with the right hand, and he won't go down, Bugner. At that point, he didn't even put the knees on the canvas. He tried to absorb the punches, and that was a pretty brave effort of his, perhaps foolish. And he's getting 7, 8, 9, and he's going to let him box on, and he's pinned in Bruno's corner, and it won't go surely now. The towel has come in from the Australian's corner, and Bugner doesn't know why at that point, and at least he's had the professional's pride, Jim, of staying on his feet. That I hand it to him. He took a lot of stick there, and I don't know whether it was his wife who made the cornermen do it, or they did it under their own steam. Probably they did. They threw the towel in. The referee stopped it at that point anyway.
Yeah, well, a good performance, a good effort from Bugner, but let's talk about the man who's just really impressed everybody. Big Frank Bruno has finally come of age, a real professional performance from the first punch to the last punch. Big Frank did everything right, he did nothing wrong, and at long last Britain has a heavyweight we can be proud of, and we can, okay, we're not going to talk about beating Tyson, but at least we can be proud and put him in there and let him have his chance.
Bruno won by 8th round stoppage. Lennox Lewis was born in London, but won the Olympics in South Korea at super heavyweight while still a resident of Canada. He came back to the United Kingdom to pursue his pro boxing career, and at 14-0 in 1991, he took on the British champion, Gary Mason, 35-0, a knockout puncher, stablemate of Frank Bruno at that Royal Oak Gym in Canning Town. Lewis was the European champion. Mason not too long ago had surgery on a detached retina after he fought Everett Bigfoot Martin. And it's said that Lennox had a picture of Mason on the punch bag to remind him to aim for the eye. This was Lennox's first test, and Mason, a very physically strong, powerfully built heavyweight, tested Lennox's gas tank, and at times Lennox looked a little unsteady when hit by clubbing Gary Mason punches, but he came through the test. Mason's eye was a mess. Lennox's fluid movement and his jab was just a little too much for Gary. 7th round stoppage. This was looked upon as a 50-50 fight at the time though. Lennox hadn't convinced the British public or media at this time that he was the real deal. The jury was still out, but this was a test he passed with flying colours.
Let us move on.
The golden era of British boxing. 1993, the 22-0 Lennox Lewis WBC heavyweight champion takes on the 36-3-0 Frank Bruno. The fight is held at the National Stadium, Cardiff. The week after that, at Old Trafford, Chris Eubank takes on Nigel Benn in their long-awaited rematch. The country's gone boxing crazy. You don't have to pay for fights, it's all on terrestrial television. Tensions were high as Lennox called Frank Bruno and Uncle Tom. Bruno seemed more animated than usual in the build-up.
How are you feeling?
Very, very fine. Everything's going like a jigsaw puzzle. The jigsaw puzzle should be finished tonight when I get in the ring, mate. Very, very confident, very relaxed, very chilled, mate. Very relaxed. You can see who the fans are going for tonight, and I'm very chilled, very relaxed.
Last message for Lennox?
I'm going to knock him out so hard he's got to pay to get back in. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Saving all my emotions. It's going to be
Respect, Frank.
All right, Dave, yeah? Nice one.
All the fans are with you at the moment, isn't it?
Thank you very much. It's nice.
A great fight. Bruno was ahead on one of the scorecards, the other two were even. Bruno was stopped in the 7th when Lennox, with his back against the ropes, caught Bruno with a counter left hook, followed up, and Mickey Van had no option but to stop the defenceless Bruno from taking further punishment. In front of a crowd of 25,000 in Cardiff.
I was saying a couple of days ago how one-sided this fight's going to be. You know, I said some things that upset a few people. You know, I said this fight's going to be as one-sided as a gang. You know, that upset a lot of people, but it's going to be so one-sided. It couldn't be any more one-sided than a boxing match can be. He's not going to land any of his shots. I'm going to land all of mine, and he's going to be left unconscious on the floor.
You're sorry you said that, though, aren't you?
Listen, wait until you see the fight. When you see the fight...
I mean about the comments that you made.
I'm
You're
not embarrassed by it, no.
In 2009, prize fighter tournaments are a staple of British boxing. This is before the stadium fights with Carl Froch, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Eddie Hearn, following in his dad's footsteps, is making his name as a matchroom boxing promoter. He resurrects Audley Harrison to fight in one of these prize fighter tournaments, which he wins. And in 2010, Audley is awarded a shot at the WBA heavyweight champion, David Haye. It's car crash boxing, indeed, but the back and forths between Haye and Harrison seem to have gripped the public. Harrison, a former Olympic gold medalist, believes that David Haye was ungrateful because when he was getting all the shine and was somewhat of a mentor to David, Audley now believes that David is getting too big for his boots. The fight, however, was a disappointment. There was barely a punch thrown for the first 2 rounds. Haye opened up with some big overhand rights. In the third, Audley crumbled. It was over. Haye went over to Harrison's corner. They embraced, they hugged. But the damage was done. This was not a good advertisement for boxing. A lot of people questioned how Harrison was getting a title shot, me being one of them.
Right, everyone goes fucking mad, they're throwing things in the ring. I walk out with Audley, people are throwing things, my mates look, what the fuck was that, Eddie? I'm like, oh. And I walk out and some bloke, I'll never forget, about the thing, Hearn! I looked at him and went, you're a fucking shit promoter. And I was like, went in the change room, I said to Audley, I went, what's that? Oh well, you know, I know he was waiting to throw the right hand and up. I was like, also what were you going to, like, you know, anyway, I said to him, you've got to go to the press conference and just say you froze. Because you did, really, like, and he went, I went to the press conference, I went, Audley, you know, you built this fight up, what you got to say for yourself? He said, I thought the ref jumped in a bit early.
Haye was soundly outpointed by Vladimir Klitschko in Germany and relieved of his belt in July 2011, just weeks before Tyson Fury had his first fight with Derek Chisora. That was at Wembley Arena. British and Commonwealth titles were on the line. Both men were 14-0. Tyson Fury took a hard-fought UD. The 2 men went on to have 3 fights, the second of which, a much improved Tyson Fury, showed a very impressive skill set, switch hitting, transforming from defense to attack seamlessly. Derek was stopped in 10.
An emphatic victory for the new British and European heavyweight champion Tyson Fury.
Derek's basically fought everybody, and I had to be mindful not to turn this video into the Derek Chisora show because he had that fight in 2012 with David Haye after they brawled in the press conference after Derek lost to Vitali in Germany in what was a very good fight. Derek also had the classic with DILLIAN White. Derek came out of the blocks like it was a track meet, but DILLIAN met him with some great counters. Derek sat on the ropes a little too much at times, needing a breather. That was something he was doing around that period of his career. Both men took turns getting hurt and coming back and rallying, and the Manchester crowd was delirious all through an all-action domestic shootout. Great fight. Anthony Joshua defended his IBF belt in the main event, stopping Eric Molina. British boxing in 2015 turned a corner when Tyson Fury outpointed Vladimir Klitschko, long-reigning unified heavyweight champion, in Dusseldorf. 3 belts were now in the United Kingdom. Then the Olympic super heavyweight champion from the UK, Anthony Joshua, ran up a record of 14-0, 14 inside the distance. He took on DILLIAN White, who had a pro record of 16 wins, no defeats, 13 inside the distance. Their beef started from a 2009 amateur contest. DILLIAN, primarily a kickboxer at that time, fought AJ in his 3rd fight. AJ had scored a couple of knockouts and was touted as the next big thing. DILLIAN, however, floored AJ with a left hook in the 2nd round and won a decision.
I was kind of a skinny bodybuilder.
A skinny bodybuilder. What were your memories
of DILLIAN?
Yeah.
You beat me. My first loss. I knocked out my first 2 opponents easy. Dillian took me...
You came there confident and you got bashed up.
Dillian took me 3 rounds, and then I went on and achieved what I achieved.
Having lost that fight, walking out of the ring, what were your memories? What did you think?
Boxing's a lot tougher than I expected.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to feel again.
Because of... Then I found out who he was and I thought, what a chump.
If everybody leave the room, and me and you staying here now, I would walk out. And you won't.
That's why I see you're a talker. You talk too much.
Do you want to do it now?
You talk too much.
Let everybody get the room now. Me and you staying here, we can have it. And see who walks out.
There again, you talk too much.
Let's have it then. Let's have it. It's as simple as that. Let's have it.
There hadn't been such anticipation in British boxing since Carl Froch retired the previous year, when 80,000 people turned up to watch him knock out George Groves in their much anticipated rematch. But this was a British and Commonwealth title fight. This wasn't a world title. The O2 Arena sold the tickets out within hours, and Joshua was on his way to becoming a big ticket seller and pay-per-view star in the UK after getting hurt by Dillian in the 2nd and coming back to knock him out in the 7th with a right uppercut. Great fight. Dillian himself went on to become a pay-per-view draw and highly ranked world title contender.
In the 7th, it was brutal, man. It was brutal. When Anthony Joshua got him in trouble, you saw Dillian's legs do the crazy dance. The referee was reluctant to jump in to stop it because of all the criticism he's had for stopping fights early. He was reluctant to do that. So we saw a conclusive finish today. Very conclusive. A right uppercut finished the job. A right uppercut by Anthony Joshua. It was a monstrous punch. The Battle of Britain was over. We have a new British champion, Anthony Joshua.
November 2020. Everything's on the line. Danny Dubois' British heavyweight title. Joe Joyce, Commonwealth champion. And the vacant EBU title. Dubois, 15-0. Joyce, 11-0. So who did you pick? Joe Joyce, Olympic silver medalist, and all his amateur experience, WSB experience, better pro resume, a supposed iron chin, stamina for days, or Danny Dubois? Youth, power, could he be the next Mike Tyson? 10th round stoppage for Joe Joyce. Daniel's left eye socket broken, nerve damage. Joyce's jab and boxing ability actually proved to be too much for Daniel on the night.
That's all, I ain't got nothing to say. Man's out here quitting. Shit. Man's out here quitting in the mid-fight.
Losing to Joyce in 2020 left a lot of people with the perception that Daniel Dubois is a quitter. He followed up by quitting against Usyk in a challenge for Usyk's unified titles in 2023. 2 wins in 2024 against Baby Miller and Filip Hrgovic, and then he was awarded the IBF heavyweight title, which his former conqueror, Alexander Usyk, vacated. A lot of people now are saying that Daniel has removed the stigma of being a quitter. But the ultimate acid test to prove that will be when he defends the IBF title against the 2-time former unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua, September the 21st, Wembley Stadium. This will also be an all-British heavyweight showdown, worthy of this list, regardless of the result, the outcome. It's a huge event. 96 to 100,000 people will be there. Dubois is an underdog. The last couple of fights both men have had has led to people saying this is the best form they've both been in. So the elements are there for something special.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Dillian Whyte. While Deontay Wilder was WBC champion, he was the #1 ranked contender from 2017. Unable to secure the title shot against Wilder, he defeated Oscar Rivas and was then mandated to face Deontay Wilder. An alleged PED violation after defeating Oscar Rivas on points knocked him out of his mandatory position. He was later cleared of that violation. Then came the back-to-back fights of Alexander Povetkin, the first of which he lost by KO, the second of which he avenged by KO. Deontay Wilder, now a disposed champion, losing to Tyson Fury 2 times on the bounce, the first of which in 2020, the second in 2021. So Dillian finally get a long-awaited title shot against Tyson Fury in April of 2022. Dillian seemed unusually subdued throughout the build-up. It was almost like he didn't want to upset Tyson Fury, which is unusual for Dillian Whyte. Where was this Dillian Whyte? The Dillian Whyte in the 2 Derek Chisora fights. 11 years as a pro, I, for one, was expecting a more spirited challenge than we got from Dillian. In fact, the fight was a little anticlimactic. The build-up was very anticlimactic, and the whole event was saved by Tyson Fury's right uppercut, which he followed up with a push. And as Dillian got put on his back, his head banged hard on the canvas. Somehow he beat the 10 count, but he was in no position to continue.
When the uppercut landed, I was buzzed. But obviously, you know, I was trying to regather my senses, and he proper full-on pushed me like that, and I fell over and hit my head on the canvas, which is illegal. This ain't wrestling. This is boxing. You know what I mean? But as usual, they let Fury do what he wants and get away with it. You know what I mean? I should have been allowed extra time to recover and then carry on fighting.
After the botched purse bids from 2023, where Ben Shalom withdrew Frazer Clarke from his British title bid against Fabio Wardley and left Frazer upset to the point of tears, they managed to get it together this year. I didn't know if either man had it in them to produce a fight like that, and it was a pleasant surprise. British and Commonwealth champion Fabio Wardley, 29 years of age, 17-0-0, 16 inside the distance, 6'5" and weighed in at 245. Frazer Clarke, 7-0-0, 6 inside the distance, 33 years of age, 6'6", weighed in at 266. I don't think many were expecting this type of fight from either man at the O2. Clarke showed an excellent jab and was ahead after 4 rounds. Now he either got overconfident in the 5th or perhaps became a little one-paced. Fabio Wardley, realizing he had to turn it around, started to land big rights and had Frazer hurt. Frazer, with over 20 pounds and what looked more than an inch height advantage, should have wrapped his man up and walked him back to the ropes, but allowed himself to be tagged several times, which resulted in a knockdown. A left-right put him down. I don't think he was hurt that bad, he just didn't know how to stop the fusillade of punches coming at him. That was the 5th round. The bell rung just in time for Frazer. Fabio, from the first round, he started to redden up around the nose, and it just got progressively worse and ended the fight wearing a mask of blood on his face. It really did look like a horror movie. The two went back and forth. They both had their moments. Frazer doesn't have a dodgy chin or anything like that, because if he did, he would have been knocked out. Fabio's got a very high knockout percentage. But the smaller man was hurting Frazer when the right hands landed. Fabio was clearly inconvenienced by the state of his nose. After the fight, Fabio said, "These fights take years off you." It's the type of fight he wouldn't have wanted his mother to see him in. He showed he had the capacity to take a lot of punishment, but in the long haul, it's just not going to do him any good. In the 7th round, Frazer had Fabio with his back to the ropes, threw a left hand that strayed south of the border, and was deducted a point. A crucial point, especially as the fight ended in a draw.
This bout has been ruled a draw.
Frazer was up 3 points on one of the scorecards, so the point deduction wouldn't have affected him on that card. He would have leveled up the scorecard that was in Wardley's favour, and the decider would have been the card scored 113-113. He would have got the verdict, so he must have been kicking himself after. He outboxed Fabio for long periods of that fight. I didn't like Frazer's conditioning. I still feel he was a little one-paced. I still feel he's a little heavy. After the fight, he sat on the 2nd strand, exhausted, and then slumped to the canvas, just exhausted. Neither man had much left in the tank, to be honest. The rematch takes place in October. I don't think it would be happening if Turkey and his people weren't putting up the money. Without the Saudi investment, they both take easier fights. Let's not forget, these are not world title fights. They're not world title eliminators. These are British and Commonwealth title fights. Life and death struggles. It just wouldn't make no sense burning both men out for either Queensberry or Boxer at domestic level. In saying that, let's not assume the rematch is going to be a war. You heard how Fabio Wardley reacted to the fight. Doesn't want too many wars like this. That's what he said. So there could be an adjustment in strategy for Fabio. A more defensive fight. Not that the crowd would be happy about that, but he won't want to go straight back into a war after that last fight. He won't. Perhaps Frazer's thinking the same thing.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Oh!